Chapter 221:1 can draw 23 purgatory fruits. The dozen or so Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings were somewhat stunned. They couldn't understand why a young man had suddenly appeared. Was it a coincidence, or? They stared at the young man, who appeared to be in his early 20s and had a very handsome face. The young man was currently sitting cross-legged on the ground, holding a small stone in his hand. He was using the small stone to draw two dragons playing with a pearl. The Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings were a bit puzzled, not understanding what the young man was doing. Was this a place for drawing? Young man, you've drawn those two dragons playing with a pearl quite well, one of the evolved beings said, gazing at Yili. Yili, hearing this, slowly lifted his head to look at the man who had spoken. After a few seconds he said indifferently, "Is that so?" "Yes. It's just a shame that this isn't the place for drawing. Please get up quickly and make way for us," the man continued. Yili thought for a moment and said, "Actually, not only can I draw two dragons playing with a pearl, but I can also draw other things." Oh. The man was taken aback. He didn't expect Yili to not stand up and make way. He felt that this young man was not here for something as simple as drawing a dragon playing with a pearl. "Well, I'd like to know what else you can draw besides two dragons playing with a pearl," the man said with a teasing smile. The faces of the dozen or so Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings all had a hint of amusement. They were all fifth-tier evolved beings, and this young man before them appeared to be in his early 20s. How strong could he possibly be? Besides drawing two dragons playing with a pearl, I can also draw 23 purgatory fruits, Yili said slowly. As soon as this was said, the man's expression changed dramatically because he had just counted the purgatory fruits they had picked, and there were exactly 23. "Kid, are you planning to steal the purgatory fruits from our hands?" the man asked coldly. The other dozen or so Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings understood the situation as well. They didn't seem worried. On the contrary, they continued to wear smiles. In their eyes, Yili posed no threat to them. "It seems you're not too foolish," Yili said leisurely. The dozen or so evolved beings were infuriated by his words. As members of Cloud Peak Academy, they were admired wherever they went. When had anyone ever called them foolish? "I think you're looking for death." With that, one of the evolved beings struck a palm towards Yili. Yili's expression remained unchanged as he allowed the man's palm to approach. But just as the man's hand was about to reach Yili, his body suddenly froze as if struck by lightning. Then, the man let out a miserable scream. Oh! A bloody hole had been pierced through the man's palm. Shock, absolute shock. The other dozen or so Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings were frozen in place, and they rubbed their eyes as if they couldn't believe what they were seeing. But no matter how much they rubbed their eyes, the fact remained unchanged. The corners of Yili's mouth curled up slightly, and a faint smile appeared on his handsome face. Then his pupils turned golden, and several terrifying golden spiritual lights shot forth from his pupils. Swish, swish, swish. The golden rays of light pierced through the air. These dozen or so Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings were only fifth-tier evolved beings and couldn't withstand such an attack. In an instant, all of them let out shrill screams. Follow current novels on topnovelfool.com. Chapter 222. Drink these loyalty potions, or die. The dozen or so Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings all had an extra bloody hole in their legs, and blood was pouring out continuously. It was only at this moment that these Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings realized just how terrifying the young man before them was. Yili slowly picked up the bag containing the purgatory fruits that they had collected. He wasn't particularly interested in the purgatory fruits. He had followed these Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings here, with the sole purpose of stopping them from going to the Huangjiang base city. When they had picked the purgatory fruits earlier, Yili had purchased 13 human loyalty potions from the points store. Spending 13,000 points, Yili had over 1,000,000 points left after the battle in Huangjiang base city. He didn't plan to kill these dozen or so evolved beings. If he did, there would be a constant stream of people heading to Huangjiang base city. The only solution was to make them absolutely loyal to him. At this moment, the dozen or so Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings were still screaming in agony, feeling that they were about to die. Yili looked at them and said casually, "Stop screaming. If you scream again, you will die." As soon as he said this, the dozen or so evolved beings instantly fell silent, as they knew that Yili's words were not empty threats. Even in their current state of pain, they didn't dare to make a sound. "Drink these potions and your injuries will heal," Yili said slowly. Upon hearing this, the Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings looked at each other with uncertainty. They suspected that the potions in Yili's hand might be poison. Even if it was poison, they had no choice but to drink it now. Not drinking it meant certain death, but drinking it might still offer a glimmer of hope. Just as these dozen or so evolved beings were about to drink the potions, Yili activated his healing art and healed all of their injuries. After drinking the potions, the dozen or so evolved beings no longer looked afraid of Yili. Instead, their eyes were filled with absolute loyalty. "Now, return to Cloud Peak Academy and tell them that those 2 recruiters were killed by the Dark Race members in the Northern Wilderness Zone." Cloud Peak Academy has 4 students: Xiaohui Yunman, Su Suner and Lu Qian. From now on, you will be their subordinates. "Yes, Master," the dozen or so evolved beings replied respectfully. "By the way, what positions do you hold in Cloud Peak Academy?" Yili asked. "Master, we are all recruiters of Cloud Peak Academy." Yili thought that the position of recruiter in Cloud Peak Academy, although not high, was still held by 5th-tier evolved beings. If Xiaohui and the others encountered any trouble in the future, these evolved beings should be able to handle it. "You may go now." Yili waved his hand. Immediately, the dozen or so Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings left the area. Yili opened the bag containing the purgatory fruits. All of the purgatory fruits had human faces and looked terrifying with their angry expressions and bulging eyes. Yili had eaten one before, and it tasted quite good. He picked up a purgatory fruit and began to eat. In no time, all 23 purgatory fruits were swallowed. Ding! Demonic aura plus 1000. The system's notification sound echoed in Yili's mind. Yili realized that this increase in demonic aura was likely due to the enhancement of the ancient devil tome. He couldn't help but be surprised that the purgatory fruits not only tasted good, but also boosted his demonic aura. There was no reasoning with that. Now that he was full, Yili released the Apocalypse Legion from the system space. There was Ada by Wawa, Hongye, Yutong and Swordmaster Al Chi. Follow current novels on topnovelfool.com. Chapter 223, Human-Faced Demon Spider. Currently, Ada by Wawa, Hongye, and Yutong were all 7th-tier zombies. Swordmaster Al Chi was slightly behind, but he would soon reach the 7th tier as well. It was time to upgrade Swordmaster Al Chi in the abandoned city. Yili slowly got up and headed towards the abandoned city. Upon arriving at the abandoned city, Yili couldn't help but sigh. He marveled at how there could be such a modern city in the wilderness, albeit abandoned. Roar! Roar! As soon as he entered the wilderness area, Yili heard the cries of zombies. While others might find the sound of zombies unpleasant, Yili considered these zombie cries to be the most melodious music in the world. Hundreds of zombies were approaching. These zombies were of a slightly higher level than the ones Yili had encountered in the Falling Rock Mountain range, ranging from level 3 to 4. Take action! Yili gave command to the Apocalypse Legion. Immediately, Ada by Wawa, Hongye Yutong and Swordmaster Al Chi began to attack the zombies. Yili casually opened the synthesis grid in his mind and started synthesizing. Before long, he had synthesized a 2nd-tier male zombie and a 2nd-tier female zombie. After Yili had synthesized all the hundreds of zombies, he instructed the Apocalypse Legion to attract more zombies. There were so many zombies in this abandoned city, and the Apocalypse Legion had attracted over 3,000 of them. Yili, with a calm expression on his face, watched the scene unfold. Ding! Swordmaster Al Chi has been upgraded to a 6th-tier zombie. Yili was delighted. Now the sun began to set. The beauty of the setting sun was truly captivating. Yili felt that he had had enough for the day, and was about to leave when he heard a spine-chilling laughter. Squeak, squeak. Following the sound, he saw a human-faced demon spider. This human-faced demon spider was slightly larger than a bull, with a black and white body. Its face was incredibly pale, resembling a mask. Yili couldn't help but think that if this spider were in China, it would surely scare people to death. Spiders were already scary, but the fact that this one had a human face made it even more terrifying. I never expected that there would be a human here in my territory, the human-faced demon spider said with a smug smile. This human-faced demon spider was a 4th-tier dark race member and extremely weak. At the same time, Yili noticed that there were many spider webs around this human-faced demon spider, with hundreds of 1st to 2nd-tier small human-faced demon spiders attached to them. One guess it's been more than 3 years since you last had a human meal. It seems like today, you can have a feast. The human-faced demon spider laughed again. Yili smiled inwardly, thinking that he was just about to leave when this spider appeared. It was practically seeking death. What do you think, human? Did you come here on your own, or do you want me to eat you? The human-faced demon spider stared at Yili. Yili was a bit puzzled and said to the human-faced demon spider, "Don't you see my apocalypse legion?" The human-faced demon spider was taken aback by Yili's words. It had only been paying attention to Yili earlier, and had neglected to notice the 5 zombies around him. It now took a closer look. Then the human-faced demon spider screamed in terror when it saw the 5 zombies. Well, this human-faced spider was just focused on Yili earlier. It knew that there were 5 zombies around Yili, but didn't pay attention to their eyes. It was only now that it noticed that out of the 5 7th-tier zombies standing beside Yili, 4 of them had red eyes, and 1 had silver eyes. In other words, among the 5 zombies standing next to Yili, 4 were 7th-tier zombies, and 1 was a 6th-tier zombie. Follow current novels on topnovelfool.com. Chapter 224. Achi! I'll leave it to you. The human-faced demon spider was only a 4th-tier dark race member. Seeing such a force, it was terrified beyond measure. Human, you can actually control zombies. No, you're not human, and you're not a dark race member. What are you exactly? The human-faced demon spider exclaimed in terror. After carefully sensing it, it realized that Yili's body had no human aura and no dark race member aura, and he just had an appearance identical to a human. Yili smiled faintly. You're about to die soon. Why bother knowing who I am? With that, Yili looked at Swordmaster Achi and said, Achi, I'll leave it to you. Swordmaster Achi was now a 6th-tier zombie, and Yili hadn't seen him in battle yet. After synthesizing Swordmaster Achi into a 5th-tier zombie in the Falling Rock Mountain Range, Yili gained a zombie skill called Death-Dealing Triple Ghost Sword. Now, Yili wanted to see how powerful this skill really was. The human-faced demon spider, realizing that Yili had no intention of letting it go, stared at Yili with fear in its eyes, preparing for a life-or-death struggle. Children attack! With Yili's command, the hundreds of 1st to 2nd-tier human-faced demon spiders around the 4th-tier one all rushed toward Yili. Swordmaster Achi swiftly stood in front of Yili, and his zombie attribute was speed, making him very fast. Swordmaster Achi drew his slasher sword, and in an instant, a sword's cry rang out. The pitch-black cleave sword, gleaming with icy light, was swung effortlessly. As the hundreds of human-faced demon spiders approached, Swordmaster Achi struck. Swish! This one strike seemed like 3 strikes, and 3 strikes seemed like countless strikes. This was the death-dealing triple ghost sword. Instantly, countless sword shadows attacked the hundreds of human-faced demon spiders. These human-faced demon spiders were only 1st to 2nd-tier dark race members, and couldn't withstand such an attack. They were continuously chopped to pieces, and the scene was gruesome. The 4th-tier human-faced demon spider was already scared out of its wits, and at this moment, it had only one thought: to escape from this place. The human-faced demon spider had many legs, so it was generally faster than dark race members of the same level. However, no matter how many legs it had, it couldn't escape the cleave sword of the 6th-tier zombie Swordmaster Achi. Swordmaster Achi swung his sword again, and the 4th-tier human-faced demon spider was instantly cleaved in half. Yili couldn't help but think that Achi was different when he had a sword. He had the aura of a zombie sword god. The death-dealing triple ghost sword was currently only a D-grade skill. When it reached S-grade, Its power would be beyond imagination. Sword energy sword, commanding with an awe-inspiring presence. Ding! Congratulations, host, on randomly obtaining a super treasure chest. Would you like to open it? Open it. Congratulations, host, on obtaining a zombie skill upgrade potion 11. Yili realized that he had merely thought about it, and it happened. His luck was truly exceptional. After integrating the zombie skill upgrade potion into the death-dealing triple ghost sword, the skill was upgraded to a C-grade skill. Then, Yili left the abandoned city and returned to the flame base. Upon his return, Yili noticed that the lights were on in the conference hall of the flame base. He was puzzled, wondering if there was a meeting going on. Yili walked towards the conference hall, and no one dared to stop him. At this point, his status in the flame organization was even higher than Luo Yu's. Upon entering the conference hall, he saw Luo Yu and the captains of the flame organization's squads, all looking extremely serious. Follow current novels on topnovelfool.com. Chapter 225. Lei Zhan's junior brother. Upon seeing Yili enter, Luo Yu quickly stood up to greet him. Senior, reliable information suggests that Lei Zhan's junior brother has arrived at the Thunder God organization. Luo Yu said to Yili. Lei Zhan's junior brother? Clearly, Yili was unaware of who Lei Zhan's junior brother was. Luo Yu pondered for a moment, and then continued. Lei Zhan's junior brother is named Chen Yin. He became a disciple of the sky-crushing demon, Hand, a few months ago. Chen Yun. Yili contemplated the name. If he remembered correctly, there was also a Chen Yun in the Anan base city. Chen Yun's father was Chen Ba, and after Yili killed Chen Ba, Chen Yun disappeared. Could it be? A sly smile appeared on Yili's face. Could it be that Chen Yun has arrived in the wilderness zone? Or was this guy just a namesake with Chen Yun? Senior, after Chen Yun joined the Thunder God organization, he took charge of the organization. I believe he might. Luo Yu's words were interrupted by Yili. When the enemy comes, we meet them head-on. When the water comes, we use the earth to block it, Yili said casually. With a lazy expression on his face, Yili left the meeting hall and returned to his room. Senior, Chen Yin has arrived with members of the Thunder God organization, Luo Yu said. Yili nodded slowly without any expression on his face. He activated his heavenly spirit eyes and looked out the window. A young man with members of the Thunder God organization was standing outside the flame base. And this young man? A faint smile appeared on Yili's lips. The young man who brought the Thunder God organization to the Flame organization was none other than Chen Yin, the same Chen Yin from the Anan base city. Originally, Chen Yin could have focused on cultivation and sought revenge in the future. However, it just so happened that Yili encountered him in the wilderness zone. He could only say that Chen Yin was really unlucky. Yili calmly walked out of the Flame base. At this moment, the Flame organization and the Thunder God organization were in a standoff, with a battle about to erupt at any moment. You, a small flame organization, dare to kill my senior brother? Chen Yun stared coldly at Luo Yu. Even if we killed Lei Zhan, what would you do? Suddenly, a carefree voice rang out among the crowd. Everyone turned to look. When they did, members of the Thunder God organization were visibly frightened. The power Yili had demonstrated when he was in the Thunder God organization was truly terrifying. As for Chen Yun, his eyes widened as he stared at the slowly approaching young man. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Yili. Chen Yun clenched his fists tightly and stared coldly at Yili. Months have passed. Has your father ever visited your dreams? Yili spoke slowly. Chen Yun stared at Yili. This guy had killed his father. A vendetta as deep as the abyss. Yili, for the past few months, I've been dreaming of killing you, but one never thought you would appear before me. According to the Thunder God organization's members, a powerful individual arrived at the flame base. I never imagined it would be you, ha ha ha. Chen Yun burst into laughter, nearly going insane. What are you laughing at? Yili said calmly. What am one laughing at? Chen Yun stopped laughing. Yili, my master is the renowned sky-crushing demon Hand, an 8th-tier evolved being in the Wilderness North Zone. So, why do you think 1 am laughing? Chen Yun looked as if his greatest enemy was about to be avenged, a triumphant expression spreading across his face. Yili gave a faint smile. So you just rely on the sky-crushing demon hand, an 8th-tier evolved being? Follow current novels on Top Novel.com. Chapter 226. Do you have to see my Apocalypse Legion? Chen Yun was taken aback by these words, and he couldn't imagine why Yili dared to say such things. Yili, don't you know how terrifying my master is? Chen Yun stared at Yili. Does your master know how terrifying 1 a.m.? Yili smiled calmly. He had already reached the 3rd level of the ancient devil tome, and had no fear of an 8th-tier evolved being. Silence, a long silence. Time seemed to stand still, and at this moment no one dared to speak. Chen Yun gritted his teeth. Yili, at this point, what is there for you to remain calm? My master can kill you 1,000 times in the blink of an eye. Members of the Flame and Thunder organizations held their breath. The name Sky-Crushing Demon Hand was infamous in the wilderness northern region, and just hearing it sent shivers down their spines. By the way, Yili, didn't you have some 5th-tier zombies? What happened to them? Are they dead? Chen Yun continued. The members of the Thunder God organization were surprised. What did it mean to have 5th-tier zombies? Could it be? Was this person from the Dark Race? Let me correct you, they are my Apocalypse Legion, Yili said casually. Apocalypse Legion? Just the name alone exuded unparalleled dominance. Don't act so self-righteous with me. My master will be here soon. And when that happens, no matter what legion you have, you will die. And all of you will die. Chen Yun scanned the members of the Flame organization coldly. The members of the Flame organization were terrified when they heard that Chen Yun's master was coming. Yili, now that you've heard that my master is coming soon, are you afraid? Chen Yun looked at Yili with a smug expression. But don't worry, you'll die soon, Chen Yun continued. Chen Yun's words left the members of the Flame organization quite frightened, but Yili's face remained completely calm, as if he hadn't heard anything at all. Chen Yun noticed that there was no change in Yili's expression, and his temples throbbed with anger. Yili, I will definitely dismember you and make you understand what real pain is. Chen Yun shouted angrily. The members of the Flame organization all looked at each other in silence. Chen Yun's master, Sky-Crushing Demon Hand, was about to arrive, and they couldn't help but feel fear. However, Yili remained calm, his face as placid as ever, as if nothing could disturb his composure. Chen Yun, do you know why I haven't let my Apocalypse Legion come out? Yili looked at Chen Yun with a playful expression. Chen Yun was puzzled. Why? Because I thought that if one let the Apocalypse Legion out, you would be scared out of your wits, Yili said calmly. Chen Yun was stunned. He couldn't believe Yili had the audacity to say such things. He remembered that a few months ago, in the Anon-based city, Yili's so-called Apocalypse Legion was nothing more than 5th-tier zombies. Although he was only a 2nd-tier evolved being now, his master, Sky-Crushing Demon Hand, was an 8th-tier evolved being. Chen Yun, do you want to see my Apocalypse Legion? Yili slowly asked Chen Yun. Chen Yun coldly replied. Yili, stop pretending to be calm and composed. Even if I see them, what difference will it make? You really want to see? Well then, since you want to see, I, Yili, will grant your wish. With that, Yili released the Apocalypse Legion from the system space. Follow current novels on Top Novel.com. Chapter 227. The Death of Chen Yun. Currently, Ada by Wawa, Hongye and Yutong were all 7th-tier zombies, while Swordsman Achi was a 6th-tier zombie. After Yili released the Apocalypse Legion, all the members of the Thunder God organization were dumbfounded. They all collapsed on the ground in fear. Say 7th-tier zombies? 7th-tier zombies were easily recognizable by their red eyes. Chen Yun felt like he had been struck by lightning. His eyes were probably the widest they had ever been in his entire life. He remembered that just a few months ago, these zombies were clearly only 5th tier, and now there were 2 additional zombies. 4 7th-tier zombies and 1 6th-tier zombie. This was too horrifying. Yili looked at Chen Yun's horrified expression and calmly said, This is my Apocalypse Legion. How does it feel? Chen Yun couldn't even form a complete sentence at this point. He was trembling uncontrollably, his body paralyzed with fear. "Come here and let me kill you," Yili said, beckoning to Qinyin. Hearing these words, Qinyin was truly terrified, as if his soul had left his body. "Yili, my master will be here soon. If you dare do anything to me, my master won't spare you." Qinyin tried to intimidate Yili using his master's name, but Yili had never been one to be threatened, and he hated being threatened. "Qinyin, if there is a next life, remember never to provoke the wrong people, because the consequences are severe," Yili said slowly. Yili raised his finger, and golden spiritual energy wrapped around it. In the moment his words fell, the golden spiritual energy shot towards Qinyin. In his final moments, Qinyin's eyes were filled with golden spiritual energy, and he could no longer see anything else. Swish! With the sound of breaking wind, Qinyin disappeared from this world forever. Silence, a deadly silence. It wasn't until this moment that the members of the Thunder God organization finally felt what true fear was. They even felt their souls trembling uncontrollably. For these people from the Thunder God organization, Yili had no interest at all because they were just too weak, like fallen leaves on the road. "You deal with them," Yili said to Luoyu. Luoyu was taken aback, and she knew exactly what Yili meant. After a few seconds, Luoyu stared at the members of the Thunder God organization and said coldly, "One gave you a chance last time, but now you've brought this upon yourselves. Kill them all for me." With Luoyu's command, the members of the Flame organization rushed forward. Without Qinyin, the members of the Thunder God organization scattered in panic. Before long, the area outside the Flame base was filled with blood. In this ruthless wilderness area, none of the members of the Thunder God organization survived. With the Thunder God organization eradicated, the Flame organization became the strongest in the region. Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion watched from the sidelines. His face, which had been indifferent, became even more so. Qinyin had claimed that sky-crushing demon hand was coming, so why hadn't he arrived yet? Could it be that Qinyin was lying? Thinking this, Yi Li's uninterested expression grew even more uninterested. "My disciple!" A sudden loud shout reached Yi Li's ears. Hearing this voice, Yi Li's previously uninterested expression suddenly became animated. Even with his eyes closed, Yi Li could have guessed that the one who had made that sound was none other than Sky-Crushing Demon Hand, an 8th-tier evolved being. Follow current novels on topnovelfool.com. Chapter 228. Meng Kangshan's scheme. The members of the Flame organization quickly turned their heads in the direction of the voice, as a middle-aged man in his 50s descended from the sky. The middle-aged man was dressed in a suit, had sharp sword-like eyebrows, a pair of sharp eyes, and a silver basin-like face. As soon as the members of the Flame organization saw this middle-aged man, they recoiled as if they had encountered a grim reaper. Meng Songtian, the sky-crushing demon hand, had a fearsome reputation in the wilderness northern region. The name Meng Songtian alone had a shocking effect. When Meng Songtian arrived at Qinyin's body, his face filled with sorrow. "Who did this?" Meng Songtian suddenly shouted in anger. He stared at the members of the Flame organization, and a pressure emanated from his body. "It's you who killed my disciple. I will make you all pay." Meng Songtian roared. Yi Li smiled and looked at the furious Meng Songtian. Qinyin was only a 2nd-tier evolved being. Do you really have to kill so many people to avenge him? As these words were spoken, Meng Songtian turned his gaze towards Yi Li. "No wonder a small Flame organization dared to attack my disciple. It turns out you exist," Meng Songtian said. "You control such powerful zombies, but I can't sense the aura of the dark race from you. And one can't feel any trace of a human aura either. What race are you from exactly?" Meng Songtian asked, staring at Yi Li. Yi Li looked at Meng Songtian and said, "Since you want to know, I'll tell you. I am a demon." A demon? The members of the Flame organization had already learned that Yi Li was a demon, although they didn't know exactly what that meant. Demon? Meng Kangshan's face showed some astonishment, clearly having never heard of the term before. You can think of it this way. In this world, there is only one demon, and that's me, Yi Li, Yi Li said slowly. Meng Songtian stared at Yi Li, feeling somewhat hesitant. After all, Yili was an 8th-tier evolved being, and he had 4 7th-tier zombies and 1 6th-tier zombie. With such strength, there was no way he could defeat him. I didn't expect someone like you to appear in the wilderness northern region. Today I, Meng Songtian, am alone and can't beat you. If you have the guts, come and challenge me in the abandoned city, Meng Songtian said to Yili. And I'll also make sure to spread the information about you. It won't be long before you become famous in the wilderness northern region, Meng Songtian said with a smug look at Yili. Yili was momentarily taken aback. He didn't expect to get free publicity, but it seemed that Meng Kangshan's goal was to let the humans and the dark race in the wilderness northern region know that a demon had arrived in the wilderness northern region. A demon? Neither a human nor a dark race member. Was this meant to make me the enemy of the entire wilderness northern region? A hint of excitement appeared on Yi Li's calm face. He had originally intended to kill Meng Songtian, but hearing Meng Kangshan's words, he was actually looking forward to it. As for dealing with Meng Songtian, he could do that later. Farewell, demon. With that, Meng Songtian leaped into the air and left the area. The members of the Flame organization were still in shock. Did Meng Songtian, the sky-crushing demon hand, just leave like that? However, Luo Yu looked at Yi Li with some concern. Although she knew that Yi Li's strength was beyond her imagination, she couldn't help but worry. Yi Li thought that in the coming days, some interesting things might happen. He decided to stay with the Flame organization for a few days and see what unfolded. Sure enough, as Yi Li expected, many interesting things happened in the next few days. Follow current novels on topnovelfool.com. Chapter 229. The Apocalypse Legion. In these days, thanks to Meng Kangshan's propaganda, the name of Yi Li seemed to float like the wind in various corners of the wilderness northern region. They knew that Yi Li was a demon, neither human nor a member of the dark race. In an instant, the wilderness northern region was in a great uproar. Some organizations not far from the Flame base came one after another, wanting to join. In just 3 days, the Flame organization had more than 1,000 new members. Many people came to see Yi Li, wanting to know what this so-called demon was. Are you guys worthy of seeing Senior? Luo Yu looked coldly at the 13 people in front of her. These 13 people had bizarre appearances, with earrings, nose rings, lip rings, and their hair dyed in bright colors. Little girl, what did you just say? We, the Western Mountain Ghouls, coming to your tiny Flame organization, is already a great honor for you. How dare you speak to us like that? The Western Mountain Ghouls had some reputation in the wilderness northern region, all of them being 5th-tier evolved beings. Sorry, you don't have the qualifications to meet Senior. Luo Yu ruthlessly rejected them. Upon hearing this, the Western Mountain Ghouls all furrowed their brows, and one of them coldly retorted, "It seems like we, the Western Mountain Ghouls, haven't shown up for too long. Nobody in the wilderness northern region remembers our name anymore." Yi Li, who was sleeping on a nearby tree, opened his eyes and watched the scene with a hint of amusement on his face. He never expected to find goths in the wilderness northern region. Western Mountain Ghouls? Yi Li couldn't help but chuckle. Just 13 5th-tier evolved beings. It was indeed a case of when the cat's away, the mice will play. Alda, go give them a scare. After saying that, Yi Li closed his eyes again. Ada walked over. Standing at a height of 1.90 meters, he had a red cloak, silver gloves that gleamed, golden hair, and muscles all over his body like a coiling dragon. The Western Mountain Ghouls were still yelling at Luo Yu when suddenly they felt like a giant tower had appeared beside them, blocking out even the sunlight. The 13 people were stunned and looked behind them. And when they looked, they were utterly shocked. This person's physique was just too powerful. This. Suddenly, one of the Western Mountain Ghouls was left speechless, because he had realized that the person in front of him was not a human but a zombie, a 7th-tier red-eyed mutant zombie. As soon as this was said, all the Western Mountain Ghouls took 3 steps back in fright, with cold sweat breaking out on their foreheads. This is the leader of Senior's Apocalypse Legion. Luo Yu stared at the Western Mountain Ghouls and said. Before coming, the Western Mountain Ghouls had heard about the demon in the Flame organization, who had an Apocalypse Legion. In this Apocalypse Legion, There were 5 powerful zombies, 4 7th-tier zombies and 1 6th-tier zombie. At first they didn't believe it, but now, with Ada standing beside them, how could they not believe it? At this moment, the Western Mountain Ghouls deeply regretted their decision. It was unclear if someone had secretly investigated Yi Li, or something else had happened. But now both Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion had become known in the Wilderness Northern region. The Demon King Yi Li, the Fist God Zombie Ada, the Ironfoot Zombie Baiwawa, the Ice Zombie Hongya, the Petrifying Zombie Yutong, and the Ghost Sword Zombie Al Chi. It was unknown who had come up with these names, but Yi Li could only say they were quite creative. Not only did Yi Li's reputation soar in the Wilderness Northern region, but the Apocalypse Legion was also equally famous. The Fist God, Ironfoot, Ice, Petrifying, and Ghost Sword zombies were all widely known, although very few had actually seen them. Follow current novels on topnovelfool.com. Chapter 230. Why should I fear ants like you? The 13 Goths from the Western Mountain Ghouls saw Ada with his red cloak and silver gloves, and when Luo Yu added her statement, they naturally realized that Ada was the Fist God zombie. Before coming, they simply couldn't believe that someone like this would suddenly appear in the Wilderness Northern region. Demon King? Neither human nor a member of the Dark Race? How could it be possible? But now they found out not only were they wrong, but they were utterly mistaken. Well, actually, we came to join the Flame Organization, one of them said in a terrified voice to Luo Yu. The Western Mountain Ghouls knew that if they uttered any more arrogant words at this moment, there was absolutely no chance of them surviving. Luo Yu was taken aback. She didn't expect the Western Mountain Ghouls to suddenly change their stance like this. You came to join the Flame Organization? Luo Yu looked at them with skepticism. The Western Mountain Ghouls clearly weren't here to join the Flame Organization. With Ada right behind them, the pressure from a 7th-tier zombie was overwhelming. They were struggling to catch their breath. The Western Mountain Ghouls didn't finish their sentence before Yi Li arrived at their side. Yi Li yawned, his face showing a lazy expression. The Western Mountain Ghouls were startled. When did this young man appear beside them? How did they not notice him? Brat, did you also come to join the Flame Organization? One of them stared at Yi Li. Yi Li shook his head slowly. No. The Western Mountain Ghouls were confused. Then what did you come for? Are you here to cause trouble for the Flame Organization? They thought it was ridiculous that this brat hadn't noticed the Fist God zombie. When he realized, his jaw would probably drop. Yi Li shook his head again. No. The Western Mountain Ghouls looked at the young man in front of them. They scratched their heads, never having seen such a calm young man before. It was as if nothing could faze him. Brat, what did you come here for? One of them angrily shouted. The Western Mountain Ghouls were famous in the Wilderness Northern region. Now, this young man who wasn't even well known dared to act so arrogantly in front of them. Luo Yu wanted to remind him, but felt that speaking at this moment might not be a good idea, and could lead to displeasure from Senior. Yi Li looked at the man who had spoken. This man had green hair, as if he had a lush green field on his head. He had earrings, nose rings, lip rings, and tattoos all over his body. Isn't this a goth? Interesting. Hee, do you have the qualifications to know why one came here? Yi Li replied nonchalantly. What? The Western Mountain Ghouls were infuriated by his response. Brat, we are the Western Mountain Ghouls of the Wilderness Northern region. The 13 members of the Western Mountain Ghouls stared at Yi Li, firmly believing that when Yi Li heard their name, he would be shocked. The people from the Flame Organization, who witnessed this scene, couldn't help but shake their heads. It was a case of digging one's own grave. The Western Mountain Ghouls had brought this upon themselves. But what the Western Mountain Ghouls never dreamed of was that Yi Li's expression remained completely unchanged. Brat, aren't you afraid? One of them asked in confusion, staring at Yi Li. Afraid? Why should I fear ants like you? Yi Li replied slowly. As soon as these words were uttered, the Western Mountain Ghouls were left dumbfounded. They, the famous Western Mountain Ghouls, had just been called ants. Chapter 231. The Wrath of the Western Mountain Ghouls. The Western Mountain Ghouls stared intensely at Yi Li. They were the proud Western Mountain Ghouls, and wouldn't allow anyone to insult them. Brat, one really admire your courage. You dare to say such things to us, the Western Mountain Ghouls. One of the Western Mountain Ghouls spoke coldly. Yili pondered for a few seconds, then looked at the man who had spoken, saying, Are you not ants? All 13 members of the Western Mountain Ghouls were 5th-tier evolved beings, and while others might see them as strong, Yili found them to be weak. The members of the Flame Organization watched this scene, knowing well that the Western Mountain Ghouls were insignificant in Yili's eyes. They were anticipating a good show, as such displays were rare. Brat, since you say we're ants, one will make you regret it today. One of the Western Mountain Ghouls shouted angrily. Yili gave a faint smile and shook his head slowly. Just you alone is not enough. This person was taken aback, thinking, I'm a 5th-tier evolved being. How dare this brat, only in his 20s, be so arrogant to me? What if one join? Another one of the Western Mountain Ghouls stepped forward and said, Not enough. Yili shook his head again, his face calm as water. The Western Mountain Ghouls were getting furious, and another one of them jumped out, staring at Yili and said, What if we all go together? They thought that with 3 against 1, this young man would surely be terrified. However, they couldn't have anticipated that Yili would shake his head again. Not enough, Yili said calmly. Brat you, what if all the Western Mountain Ghouls go together? At this point, the Western Mountain Ghouls were filled with overwhelming rage, and they had never been so angry in their entire lives. But they would rather believe that the sky was falling than what they were about to witness. Still not enough, Yili said again, shaking his head. The 13 members of the Western Mountain Ghouls were infuriated beyond measure. They couldn't believe that they, the Western Mountain Ghouls, couldn't handle a young man, and he even dared to be so arrogant in front of them. Luoyu was also astonished. She watched Yili's calm and carefree expression, and couldn't help but feel her heart pounding uncontrollably. All right. Since you say that, today all 13 of us will teach you a lesson. As the words fell, the 13 members of the Western Mountain Ghouls began to advance towards Yili. They intended to make Yili understand they messed with the wrong person. Yili looked at the approaching Western Mountain Ghouls with a calm expression, standing still like a statue, and he slowly raised a finger. On top of that finger, a terrifying golden spiritual light began to swirl. Just as the Western Mountain Ghouls were about to reach him, Yili's finger descended. Swish, swish, swish. In an instant, dozens of golden spiritual lights shot out violently. At first, the Western Mountain Ghouls didn't pay much attention, but as they tried to dodge the oncoming golden spiritual lights, it was already too late. Their eyes widened, as if they felt the gates of hell opening up before them. In an instant, all the Western Mountain Ghouls fell to the ground, their legs riddled with horrifying blood holes. Chapter 232. My name is Yili. The members of the Flame Organization were all in shock at this sight. Although they knew Yili was powerful, these were 13 5th-tier evolved beings. 13 5th-tier evolved beings were defeated so easily? Listening to the agonizing cries of the fallen Western Mountain Ghouls, the members of the Flame Organization turned their gazes once again to Yili, who had a somewhat slender figure. But the slender figure exuded a tremendous visual impact. He appeared like an ancient deity standing between heaven and earth, truly terrifying. The Western Mountain Ghouls were sweating in pain, and they finally realized what kind of existence they had provoked. Yili looked at the fallen Western Mountain Ghouls, and after a few seconds spoke slowly. Did you just say you came to join the Flame Organization? It hurts so much. We were originally here to join the Flame Organization. When Lord Demon King Yili finds out, he won't spare you. One of them cried out in pain. Yili found these Western Mountain Ghouls, with their goth appearance, quite interesting. Since they came to join the Flame Organization, he might as well facilitate that. He raised his palm and activated his healing technique. A golden spiritual light descended on the wounds of the 13 Western Mountain Ghouls. In an instant their wounds healed. The Western Mountain Ghouls felt the pain subside, and looked at their wounds. To their astonishment, the wounds had disappeared. It wasn't just healing. The wounds had completely vanished, as if they had never existed. What is going on? one of the Western Mountain ghouls exclaimed in disbelief. It seems like that young man unleashed dozens of golden spiritual lights from his palm, and then our wounds healed. Another one said. It looks like it golden spiritual lights and the golden aura. SSS level genetic warrior? In the wilderness northern region, many people had never even heard of SSS level genetic warriors, but the Western Mountain ghouls had heard of them. Once the Western Mountain ghouls were certain that Yi Li was an SSS level genetic warrior, they were all shocked. They got up from the ground. They had come to understand that Yi Li was not someone they could defeat. One of them cautiously looked at Yi Li and asked, "May first ask, who you are?" All of the Western Mountain ghouls looked at Yi Li, and their attitude had changed from disdain to respect. Yi Li's lips curled up slightly, and a faint smile appeared on his face. He spoke slowly. "I am Yi Li." What? The Western Mountain ghouls were shocked beyond belief. They never dreamed that the young man before them was Yi Li. Yi Li, the Demon King Yi Li. At the same time, they finally understood the true extent of Yi Li's terror. Originally, they had come with the intention of challenging him, but when they saw the 7th-tier fist god zombie Alda, they realized that it was impossible. Now a young man had appeared, showing an indifferent demeanor. They naturally wanted to show this young man a lesson, so he would understand the consequences of offending the Western Mountain ghouls. But how could they have expected that this young man was none other than the Demon King Yi Li? After Meng Qingshan's propaganda, the name of Demon King Yi Li in the wilderness northern region was almost a household name. "Lord Demon King, please allow us to become your followers," the Western Mountain ghouls suddenly said to Yi Li. "I, Yi Li, do not need any human followers," Yi Li replied calmly. Chapter 233. Heading to the abandoned city, the Western Mountain ghouls were taken aback. They hadn't expected that Yi Li wouldn't need their following. Immediately, all 13 of the Western Mountain ghouls wore self-deprecating expressions. They now understood the gap between them and Yi Li, like ants standing at the base of an infinitely tall mountain. "Weren't you here to join the Flame Organization?" Yi Li suddenly asked. The 13 Western Mountain ghouls were startled. Despite their eccentric appearances with colorful hair, they were not foolish. On the contrary, they were quite intelligent and understood what Yi Li meant. "Respected Demon King, of course, we came to join the Flame Organization," one of them quickly replied. Wasn't joining the Flame Organization essentially the same as following Yi Li? Luo Yu's exquisite face lit up with joy. She knew that the Western Mountain ghouls were already submissive towards Senior. With the joining of the Western Mountain ghouls, the Flame Organization would naturally become stronger. Yi Li's face remained expressionless. He had been in the Flame Organization for a few days now, and it was time to head to the abandoned city. He remembered that Meng Songtian had asked him to go to the abandoned city to challenge him before leaving. He had just been there a few days ago, so he knew the way well. Yi Li opened the points mall in his mind. When he was in the Anan-based city, he had elevated Chun Chi's realm using points. Now that Luo Yu was the leader of the Flame Organization, it was too weak for her to remain a second-tier evolved being. He spent 100,000 points to purchase 10 upgrade potions. "Luo Yu, come here," Yi Li called out to Luo Yu. Luo Yu was taken aback, and her exquisite face showed confusion. "Senior, what's wrong?" Yi Li handed the 10 upgrade potions to Luo Yu. "Drink them." Luo Yu looked at the potions in Yi Li's hand and accepted them with some bewilderment. Although she didn't know what was inside, she trusted that Yi Li wouldn't harm her. Without much thought, Luo Yu consumed all 10 life potions. Instantly, Luo Yu felt an invisible force surging through her internal organs. Her fair face showed shock and astonishment. Am one breaking through? After a few minutes, Luo Yu couldn't believe it. She stared at her own hands in astonishment and said, "Am I a 4th-tier evolved being now?" She knew very well that her becoming a 4th-tier evolved being must have been related to the potions she had just consumed. "Senior, just now did I?" Luo Yu hadn't finished her sentence before Yi Li interrupted. "Yes, just as you thought," Yi Li replied. "I'm going to the abandoned city," Yi Li continued. Luo Yu knew that Yi Li couldn't stay in the small Flame Organization for long. She smiled at Yi Li. "Senior, please be careful." Yili nodded, and then set off for the abandoned city, accompanied by Ada. The abandoned city was an absolute danger zone in the wilderness northern region, inhabited by dark race, organized forces, and zombies. Meng Songtian, the sky-crushing demon hand, was the master of the Ghost Hand sect, which was a major power in the abandoned city. The Ghost Hand sect was a large faction in the abandoned city with thousands of members. Currently, Yili was an 8th-tier evolved being. Ada, Bai Wawa, Hongya, and Yutong were all 7th-tier zombies, while Swordsman Achi was a 6th-tier zombie. Yili's primary goal upon arriving at the abandoned city was to elevate Swordsman Achi to a 7th-tier zombie. Chapter 234. The violet-haired girl using the swift steps. Yili and the Apocalypse Legion arrived at the abandoned city. Presently, with Yili leading the Apocalypse Legion, it was as if a great sage had arrived, and all other deities had dispersed. The area Yili arrived at was the same as the last time he had been there, where he had synthesized over 4,000 zombies. He wondered if he had exhausted all the zombies here. Upon entering with the Apocalypse Legion, the place felt eerily quiet. Yili used his heavenly spirit eyes to scan the area and confirmed that there were indeed not many zombies left. To advance Swordsman Achi to a 7th-tier zombie, they needed to venture deeper. Yili, with the Apocalypse Legion, proceeded further into the city. They arrived at a desolate area with crumbling walls and ruins, as if it had experienced a modern war. Using his heavenly spirit eyes, Yili found several zombies in the vicinity and sent the Apocalypse Legion to lure them over. Before long, the Apocalypse Legion had attracted numerous zombies. These male and female zombies appeared to be at levels 3 to 4. Yili synthesized all of them, and as the number of zombies increased, the level of zombies he synthesized also rose. Finally, after 5 hours, Yili had synthesized a 6th-tier male zombie and a 4th-tier female zombie. After synthesizing the 6th-tier male zombie with Swordsman Achi, he upgraded Swordsman Achi to a 7th-tier zombie. Now there was one remaining 4th-tier female zombie. Yili's system space already contained another 4th-tier female zombie. By merging these two 4th-tier female zombies, he created a 5th-tier female zombie. Yili smiled in satisfaction. With the Apocalypse Legion's 5 zombies all upgraded to 7th tier, and himself as an 8th-tier evolved being, their combined strength made them practically invulnerable in the abandoned city. Run! Run! At this moment, Yili suddenly heard several extremely frightened voices. Yili gazed ahead and saw more than a dozen evolved beings frantically running in his direction. These dozen or so evolved beings were all 3rd-tier evolved beings, and among them, there was only one female evolved being. The female evolved being was a girl with exquisite features. Her long, blue hair flowed in the wind, and she was a 3rd-tier evolved being. Behind these evolved beings, a group of heavy sword-wielding undead, over 30 in number, were madly chasing them. Yili smiled faintly, thinking that these evolved beings must feel like the sky was falling. After all, over 30 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead were not something they could defeat. Although people tended to be at their fastest when fleeing for their lives, these dozen or so evolved beings were eventually caught up to by the undead. The evolved beings started battling the group of 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead. In an instant, not far from Yili, the sounds of screams from the evolved beings could be heard continuously. Miss, run quickly, will hold them back. One of the evolved beings yelled at the girl with violet hair, then rushed into the group of 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead. The violet-haired girl was in a state of panic, standing frozen in place. Miss, run! Another voice from an evolved being finally brought her back to her senses. By this point, the violet-haired girl was already tearful. She bit her lip hard, and then began running toward Yili's direction. All of the dozen or so evolved beings had met a tragic end, and there were still over 20 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead chasing after the violet-haired girl. Follow current novels on topnovelfool.com. Chapter 235. Do you know who is most likely to die? The violet-haired girl, in her panic, ran up to Yili, stopping just a few steps away. She looked back at the 20 or so third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead closing in behind her. The 20-plus third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead were getting closer to the violet-haired girl. The girl turned around, her only thought now being to escape this terrifying city. However, as she looked back, her frightened face turned even more terrified. This was because right in front of her, 6 figures stood in a single file. No, to be precise, it was 1 person and 5 zombies, 5 7th-tier zombies. The violet-haired girl was horrified and had to stop in her tracks. She was trapped between Yi Li and his group, and the more than 20 third-tier skeleton undead behind her. What should she do? She didn't know. She really didn't know. The more than 20 third-tier skeleton undead also came to a halt, all of them staring at Yi Li. "Sir, this human has offended us. Please do not obstruct us," one of the third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead said to Yi Li. Yi Li smiled and calmly looked at the speaking heavy sword-wielding undead. "Do you know who I am?" Yi Li slowly asked. With this statement, both the violet-haired girl and the more than 20 third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead were puzzled. They didn't understand why Yi Li would say such a thing. Then, the more than 20 third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead and the violet-haired girl stared at Yi Li and the 5 zombies beside him. When they saw the eyes of the 5 zombies, their expressions turned ashen. What? 7th-tier zombies? These more than 20 third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead were truly puzzled as to why there would be 7th-tier zombies in the abandoned city. And not just 1, but 5. Suddenly, the more than 20 third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead considered a startling possibility. The youth before them was the Demon King. Yi Li. It was no longer a possibility but a fact. Recently, all the major forces in the wilderness northern region had heard the name Demon King Yi Li. And they also knew that the Demon King Yi Li had 5 zombies. The Fist God zombie, the Ironfoot zombie, the Frost zombie, the Petrification zombie, and the Ghost Sword zombie. Now, with 5 high-tier zombies appearing beside this youth, it would be foolish not to realize that he was the Demon King Yi Li. These 20-odd third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead could realize it, and the purple-haired girl could naturally think as well. She became even more frightened. The skeleton undead were stunned. How had they not noticed earlier that this youth was the Demon King Yi Li? Noble presence, this human is an enemy of our dark race in the abandoned city. Could you please? The words of the third-tier skeleton undead were cut short as Yi Li interrupted. Are you trying to negotiate with me? Yi Li looked calmly at the speaking skeleton undead. All the more than 20 third-tier, heavy sword-wielding undead were startled. The indifferent expression on Yi Li's face seemed terrifying to them. Despite Yi Li's handsome and graceful appearance, his eyes were full of murderous intent, and he exuded an aura that commanded respect. Demon King Yi Li, while you are undoubtedly powerful, do not forget where you are. This is the abandoned city, one of the third-tier skeleton undead said coldly. Yi Li smiled faintly, glancing at the sun in the sky before slowly speaking. Do you know who is most likely to die in the wilderness zone? Follow current novels on Top Novel Fool.com. Chapter 236. Ziqiong. The 20-plus third-tier skeletons were astonished and stared at Yi Li in disbelief. Yi Li smiled faintly. Ignorant fools like you naturally wouldn't understand my meaning, so let me tell you. In the wilderness zone, good people don't die, bad people don't die either, only foolish people die. Obviously, you are the foolish ones, even though you're not even human, Yi Li calmly stated. This statement left the 20-plus third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead utterly shocked, as they finally realized the gravity of the situation. They wanted to escape, they really did. However, it was too late. A powerful punch from Ada, combined with wind, rain, lightning, and thunder, struck out. Boom! A deafening sound reverberated, and all the 20-plus third-tier skeletons melted into nothingness. The violet-haired girl was dumbfounded and stared at Ada in shock. More than 20 third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead were obliterated by a single punch, leaving no trace of their corpses. Are you surprised? Yi Li asked the stunned violet-haired girl. Aye. The girl was startled and didn't know how to respond. If you find this surprising, let me tell you, never be surprised, because everything I do will leave you astounded for 3 days and 3 nights, Yi Li calmly stated. Upon hearing this, the violet-haired girl's fair face displayed even more astonishment. She had heard of the Demon King Yili. It was said that the Demon King Yili was neither human nor a dark race member, but a demon. She had expected the Demon King Yili to be extremely evil and hideous in appearance, but she couldn't have imagined that Yili would be so handsome. Senior Demon King, am not from the abandoned city. Am from the Falling Rock Mountain Range, the violet-haired girl said to Yili. The Falling Rock Mountain Range had many organizations and sects, some of which collaborated with the dark race to develop drugs that enhanced human genetics. Yili smiled faintly. What does that have to do with me? Upon hearing this, the violet-haired girl felt as if she had fallen into an icy pit. Yes, what did it matter to Yili where she came from? Senior Demon King, thank you for saving me. If you ever have the time to come to the Falling Rock Mountain Range, I will. She didn't finish her words before Yili interrupted her. Why did you come to the abandoned city? Yili asked. Yili wondered why she had come to the abandoned city when it was quite a distance from the Falling Rock Mountain Range. The violet-haired girl turned melancholic as she responded. The abandoned city is a forbidden zone for life, but we didn't believe it. We came here to explore, but who would have thought? The violet-haired girl didn't continue. Her eyes welled up with tears as she blamed herself for being stubborn, which had resulted in so many deaths. Yili chuckled inwardly, thinking that this violet-haired girl was just like Yun Man, who had gone to Copper City to gain experience, and ended up in a life-and-death struggle. However, Yili didn't care about these things. What's your name? Yili looked at the violet-haired girl and asked. Senior Demon King, my name is Ziqiong, the violet-haired girl replied truthfully. Yili didn't say much and waved his hand, indicating for Ziqiong to leave. As Ziqiong was about to leave, a proud and unrestrained laughter suddenly rang in Yili's ears. Yili, you've finally come to the abandoned city. Chapter 237. Do you really think I need to run? As the arrogant voice rang out, several wind-breaking sounds followed. Swish, swish, swish. Suddenly, 4 figures appeared in front of Yili. These 4 individuals were all around 50 years old. One of them was none other than the master of the Hand of the Ghosts, Meng Songtian, known as the Sky-Crushing Demon Hand. The other 3 middle-aged men were all 7th-tier evolved beings. Yili, I never expected you would dare to come to the abandoned city, Meng Songtian said with a mocking smile as he looked at Yili. Ziqiong was practically dumbstruck. Although she couldn't determine the levels of these individuals, she could sense their terror. Yili's face, like carved jade, remained unaffected by Meng Kengshan's words. He calmly said to Meng Songtian, the world is vast. Not to mention the abandoned city. Even the most dangerous places are no obstacle to me. Meng Songtian gritted his teeth and stared coldly at Yili. Yili, you killed 2 of my beloved disciples. Last time, I was alone and vulnerable. This time, you've come to the abandoned city. Do you think you can leave? Meng Songtian asked. The 3 middle-aged men beside Meng Songtian were all 7th-tier evolved beings, and they were staring coldly at Yili and his Apocalypse Legion. Meng Songtian, do you really think I need to leave? Yili's face revealed a mocking smile. At these words, Meng Songtian and the other 3 7th-tier evolved beings were visibly alarmed. Ziqiong was even more terrified. She had heard of Meng Songtian, the terrifying sky-crushing demon hand who held sway in the wilderness northern region. She had never dreamed that the middle-aged man standing before her would be Meng Songtian. In her heart, a storm of shock and disbelief was brewing. Was this what conversations between powerful individuals were like? Are you implying that you intend to fight us? Meng Songtian stared at Yili. Yili smiled faintly. With just you few crooked melons and jujubes? Do you think you're qualified to fight me? Yili was now an 8th-tier evolved being, and his Apocalypse Legion consisted of 7th-tier zombie subordinates, all dubbed by Wawa, Hongye, Yutong and Swordsman All Chi. In addition, he had advanced to the 3rd level of the ancient Devil Tome. Meng Songtian had no chance of winning against him. What did you just say? Meng Kengshan's forehead bulged with blue veins as he spoke coldly, one word at a time. Yili, don't think that just because we're only 4 people, you're guaranteed to win. Do you know where we are? This is the abandoned city. A glint of coldness flashed in Meng Qingshan's eyes. Yili remained indifferent and smiled faintly. Let them all come out. No matter how many people are here, in my eyes they are all ants. He was well aware that Meng Songtian had many humans, dark race members, and zombies hidden around him. However, Yili had no fear. Meng Songtian was startled. He had originally thought that Yili was unaware, but now it seemed that he was completely wrong. At the same time, Meng Songtian was perplexed. If you knew that there were humans, dark race members, and zombies lurking around, why do you still have no reaction on your face? Meng Songtian gritted his teeth and roared. Everyone come out! As his angry roar echoed, humans, dark race members and zombies surged forth. There were over 100 human evolved beings, ranging from 3rd tier to 4th tier. More than 100 dark race members, all in the 3rd to 4th tier, with one in the 5th tier. As for the zombies, there were over 10,000 of them, ranging from 3rd tier to 4th tier. There were over 100 1st tier mutated zombies, 10 3rd tier zombies, and 1 4th tier zombie. Chapter 238 surrounded the evolved beings from the Ghost Hand sect, the dark race members from the abandoned city, and the tens of thousands of zombies had completely surrounded Yili. As she watched this scene, Ziqiong's face had turned as pale as a sheet of paper. Yet Yili's face, still as serene as ever, showed no sign of emotion, as though he could see nothing at all. Yili, do you still think you don't need to run now? Meng Songtian looked smug as he addressed Yili. Yili smiled calmly. This scene was indeed intimidating, but what kind of situation had he not experienced before? He had once cut the rope on a ship in the middle of the sea, jumped into a bottomless abyss without fear, and faced countless perilous situations. What was this situation to him? Ziqiong was already in shock. She couldn't understand why there was someone in this world who could remain so calm. Even a fly couldn't escape from this situation. She didn't understand. She really didn't understand how Senior Demon King could be so nonchalant. The Ghost Hand sect and the abandoned city had long discovered Yi Li's presence when he entered the abandoned city through the abandoned city gate. Previously, Meng Songtian and the dark race in the abandoned city had already discussed that if Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion dared to enter the abandoned city, they would attack together. After all, the appearance of someone like Yi Li in the wilderness northern region was bad news for all major organizations and dark race factions here. Meng Songtian stared fiercely at Yi Li. He was nearly exploding with rage as he pointed his finger at Yi Li and shouted angrily, Yi Li, why are you still so calm at this point in time? Meng Songtian didn't understand. He really didn't understand why Yi Li could remain so composed. Could it be that he wasn't afraid of death? Meng Songtian immediately dismissed this idea. He firmly believed that there was no one in this world who wasn't afraid of death, even someone like Yi Li. Yi Li looked at the furious Meng Songtian and casually smiled. Why shouldn't I be calm like this? Arrogant, absolutely arrogant. Not to mention Meng Songtian. Everyone present was infuriated. Did Yi Li view them all as nothing? Yi Li, I want to engage in a war of words with you. You killed 2 of my beloved disciples, and am going to make you suffer 1,000-fold and die in pieces. Ha ha ha. Meng Songtian burst into laughter, as if he had already seen Yi Li's death. Yi Li, with so many of us here, even these tens of thousands of zombies alone can kill you and your Apocalypse Legion. With that, Meng Songtian whispered something to a 5th-tier dark race member beside him. Then the 5th-tier dark race member shouted loudly, attack! In an instant, tens of thousands of zombies rushed forward like a tidal wave. Say, Senior Demon King, what should we do? Ziqiong was already so frightened that her soul seemed to have left her body. However, Yi Li just smiled faintly. Indeed, over 10,000 zombies were a lot. But unfortunately, Yi Li possessed the super synthesis system, and he was just afraid that there weren't enough zombies. Attack my Apocalypse Legion, Yi Li calmly ordered. With Yi Li's command, the 5 7th-tier zombie members of the Apocalypse Legion all stood around Yi Li and Ziqiong. Each of them faced thousands of zombies. Just as the massive horde of zombies was about to reach them, Ada, Bai Wawa, Hongye, Yutong, and swordsman Achi began to fight. Chapter 239. Is that dragon-slaying blade in your hand? Ada, by Wawa, Hongya, Yutong and swordsman Achi began attacking the zombies coming from all directions. Although they were worlds apart from these zombies in terms of strength, their attacks were perfectly balanced. They could take down large groups of zombies with a single strike without killing them. As usual, whenever a zombie fell, Yili would synthesize it. The speed of the virtual fingers in his mind had reached an incredible level. Synthesized zombies attacked other zombies, and in no time, Yili had synthesized more than 1,000 zombies. Meng Songtian and the Dark Race members were dumbfounded when they saw this. They couldn't have imagined that such an operation was possible. Would these zombies become fewer but higher in rank? This situation was beyond anything they had ever seen or even heard of. Meng Songtian was the first to regain his senses. He shouted, "Attack together!" Although he couldn't understand why Yili possessed such divine abilities, he knew that if they didn't attack, all the tens of thousands of zombies would die. After Meng Songtian gave the order, the members of the Ghost Hand sect and the Dark Race rushed forward. Yili commanded the synthesized zombie to the side. If they really started fighting, these more than 1,000 synthesized zombies would be too weak. Kill them all now. Yili ordered the Apocalypse Legion. The remaining 9,000 zombies, along with the genetic warriors of the Ghost Hand sect and the Dark Race, advanced toward Yili and the Apocalypse Legion. Ada unleashed his earth-shattering fist, accompanied by wind, rain, lightning, and thunder attacks. Bai Wawa charged recklessly, sweeping with his Qilin foot. Hongya used her frost chi to attack with snowflakes covering the sky. Yutong employed petrification abilities and released powerful energy shocks. Swordsman Achi wielded his cleave sword, unleashing the deadly death-dealing triple ghost sword. Boom! In an instant, there were deafening explosions all around Yili. Countless human-evolved beings and Dark Race members were killed or injured. Yili then took out an extraordinary demonic sword from his system space. Clang! The sound of dragons roared alongside the blade's metallic resonance. It seemed that the entire world had suddenly fallen silent. The evolved beings of the Ghost Hand sect, the Dark Race members, and the zombies all stopped in their tracks. Above their heads, a 5-clawed blood dragon was coiled. Well, Meng Songtian was horrified. But when he looked at the sword in Yili's hand, he gaped in shock. The sword in Yili's hand was terrifying indeed. A blood dragon coiled around its blade, and even a single glance could fill someone with unimaginable shock. Suddenly, Meng Songtian realized something astonishing. The sword in Yili's hand was the dragon-slaying blade. One of the 10 great divine weapons, the dragon-slaying blade. Ha ha ha! Meng Songtian suddenly burst into maniacal laughter. Yili was puzzled, wondering if Meng Songtian had some kind of illness. Why did he suddenly laugh? What are you laughing at? Yili asked Meng Songtian. Oh Yili, I never expected that you possessed one of the 10 great divine weapons, the dragon-slaying blade. Meng Songtian replied coldly. As soon as these words came out, the genetic warriors of the Ghost Hand sect and the Dark Race members were all stunned. Dragon-slaying blade? Of course, they had heard of the dragon-slaying blade, but it was so distant and legendary that they had never imagined encountering it. Now that they heard the words dragon-slaying blade, how could they not be shocked? Chapter 240. The unparalleled strike. Yili hadn't expected that holding the dragon-slaying blade would make Meng Songtian so delighted. He looked at Meng Songtian with indifference. Oh, I have the dragon-slaying blade in my hand, and what can you do about it? Yili responded. Upon hearing this, Meng Songtian burst into laughter again, as if he had never been this happy in his entire life. Ha ha ha! Yili, you ask what one can do? Your dragon-slaying blade will soon be mine. Upon hearing this, Yili couldn't help but shake his head inwardly, feeling that Meng Songtian was truly quite ill. Yili, hand over the dragon-slaying blade obediently, and I might consider letting your body remain intact. Meng Songtian looked smug, as if in his eyes, the dragon-slaying blade already belonged to him. Hee. A faint smile appeared on Yili's handsome face. Seeing the smile on Yili's face, Meng Qingshan's expression suddenly turned icy, his face almost contorting in anger. Yili, what are you laughing at? Meng Songtian stared at Yili intently. What am one laughing at? Yili looked indifferently at him. I'm just laughing at you as nothing more than an ant. Yet you don't even know your place, Yili replied calmly. Meng Songtian was infuriated by these words, his anger flaring. In that case, don't blame me. Goodbye, Yili. As he spoke, the genetic warriors of the Ghost Hand sect, the dark race members, and the zombies attacked again. A wicked smile appeared on Yili's face. With the dragon-slaying blade in hand, he was prepared to deal a deadly blow to anyone who dared to approach. He raised the dragon-slaying blade. Suddenly, he leaped over 10 meters high, raising the dragon-slaying blade high in the air. The blade emanated a cold gleam, surrounded by a menacing demonic aura. Primordial Demon Slash. As the words fell, the blade fell. 3,000 god and demon shadows flew out, and in an instant, it felt as if the sun and moon had lost their radiance, and the earth trembled. The entire world seemed to fall silent in the moment when the 3,000 god and demon shadows struck. Boom! Then a deafening explosion followed. The aura of the dragon-slaying blade expanded in all directions, leaving nothing alive in its wake. An 8th-tier evolved being, the 3rd level of the ancient devil tome, the primordial demon slash, and the dragon-slaying blade combined in this unparalleled strike. No words could describe its terror. Meng Songtian and the 3 7th-tier evolved beings from the Ghost Hand sect stared wide-eyed, frozen in place like statues. Ziyun swore that she had never been so shocked in her entire life. Was this the Demon King Yili? When the radiance of the dragon-slaying blade dissipated, all the genetic warriors of the Ghost Hand sect, the dark race members, and the zombies had vanished. The once desolate abandoned city now looked as if it had just experienced a major earthquake. The sheer terror of this strike was beyond imagination. Meng Songtian and the Ghost Hand sect's 7th tier evolved beings remained frozen in place. They couldn't believe the situation had turned out like this. Yili slowly landed on the ground, looking at Meng Songtian with indifference. Do you still want my dragon-slaying blade now? Meng Songtian, now finally coming to his senses, stared at Yili with fear, not knowing what to say. Come here and let me kill you, Yili said slowly. Thump! With a thud, Meng Songtian and the 3 7th-tier evolved beings of the Ghost Hand sect knelt on the ground, trembling uncontrollably. Lord Demon King, we were blind and ignorant, we didn't know our place, and it was Meng Songtian who pressured us. Please spare us. The 3 7th-tier evolved beings of the Ghost Hand sect began to kowtow, begging for mercy. Chapter 241. Meng Songtian coerces Yili with Ziqiong. Isn't it a bit late begging for mercy now? Yili said calmly. The 3 7th-tier evolved beings were shocked by his words, and at this moment, all they could think about was escaping. Immediately, the 3 7th-tier evolved beings began to flee backward as fast as they could. However, Yili shook his head slowly. Did these 3 7th-tier evolved beings really think they could escape from him? He activated the swift steps and instantly appeared behind the 3 7th-tier evolved beings from the Ghost Hand sect. He raised his dragon-slaying blade and swung it. Swish! The 3 7th-tier evolved beings were instantly cut in half, and they didn't even know how they died. Haha, Yili, you didn't expect this, did you? Meng Qingshan's voice suddenly appeared behind Yili. Yili turned around slowly, genuinely puzzled about why Meng Songtian could still laugh. When he turned around, he saw that Meng Songtian was already in front of Ziqiong, and his hand was gripping her neck. Meng Songtian was, after all, an 8th-tier evolved being, while all the members of the Apocalypse Legion were only 7th-tier zombies, so there was a considerable power difference. Yili, now your woman is in my hands. As long as I twist my hand lightly, your beloved woman will disappear forever, Meng Songtian said triumphantly, looking at Yili. Yili's face remained calm like still water. He had already anticipated that Meng Songtian might resort to holding Ziqiong hostage. Ziqiong's face turned pale with fear. Her eyes filled with pleading, clearly indicating that she didn't want to die. Let her go, Yili said lightly to Meng Songtian. Yili, do you think you still have the right to say such things at this point? Hand over the dragon-slaying blade, or your beloved woman will die. Meng Songtian angrily shouted. Yi Li's face remained serene. It's a pity, she's not my woman. What are you saying? Meng Songtian asked coldly, one word at a time. You don't believe me? Yi Li looked at Meng Songtian. Meng Songtian hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do. He contemplated for several seconds. Yi Li, don't lie to me. If she's not your woman, it means you don't care if she dies. Meng Songtian thought that even if he let this woman go, he would still face certain death. If what Yi Li said was true, at least he wouldn't die alone. Thinking this way, Meng Songtian was prepared to take action. Wait, Yi Li said. As soon as Meng Songtian heard this, he licked his lips. Since Yi Li spoke at this time, it meant that this woman was truly his woman. In that case, he could exchange Yi Li's woman for the dragon-slaying blade. Even though they were both 8th-tier evolved beings, the gap between him and Yi Li was vast. He thought that the dragon-slaying blade must be the reason for this disparity. Yi Li, do you agree to the exchange? Meng Songtian stared at Yi Li. All right, Yi Li said after a few seconds of contemplation. With that, Yi Li slowly approached Meng Songtian. Just a few steps away from Meng Songtian, he stopped Yi Li. Yi Li, throw the dragon-slaying blade over here, and it'll return your beloved woman to you. Meng Songtian looked greedily at the dragon-slaying blade in Yi Li's hand, believing it was now within his grasp. Without a second thought, Yi Li tossed the dragon-slaying blade over to Meng Songtian. Meng Songtian caught it, and then pushed Ziqiong towards Yi Li. Chapter 242. The dragon-slaying blade is broken. After receiving the dragon-slaying blade, Meng Songtian felt like he had obtained a priceless treasure and burst into laughter. Why is it that you men become so foolish when you have a woman? After laughing, Meng Songtian taunted Yi Li. I don't understand what you mean. Yi Li remained as calm as ever. Meng Songtian sneered. Yi Li, one assume you have such great strength due to the dragon-slaying blade, don't you? Now that the dragon-slaying blade is in my hands, if one kill you, how far do you think your woman can run? 10 steps, Yi Li said calmly. Meng Songtian smiled coldly and raised the dragon-slaying blade. Farewell, Yi Li. With that, Meng Songtian swung the dragon-slaying blade downward. Yi Li, however, didn't make any attempt to dodge. Just as the dragon-slaying blade was about to touch his head, he raised 2 fingers and clamped the blade between them. What? Meng Kangshan's pupils rapidly contracted when he saw this scene. He couldn't believe that the mighty dragon-slaying blade, one of the 10 great divine weapons, could be held between 2 fingers. But before Meng Songtian could react, the next moment was even more astonishing. Yi Li gently twisted his 2 fingers that held the dragon-slaying blade. Crack! The dragon-slaying blade broke. How was this possible? Meng Kangshan's eyes widened to their fullest extent. The dragon-slaying blade, one of the 10 great divine weapons, had been snapped in 2 by 2 fingers? A faint smile appeared on Yi Li's face as he looked at Meng Songtian and said, When you received the dragon-slaying blade, why didn't you check if it was genuine? In the moment when he agreed to exchange with Meng Songtian, Yi Li opened the points mall and spent 1,000 points to purchase a duplication opportunity, which could replicate anything, but only produced useless duplicates. He duplicated the dragon-slaying blade, and then performed a switcheroo without Meng Kangshan's knowledge. However, Meng Songtian was completely unaware, and received the dragon-slaying blade with great arrogance, boasting that he would kill Yi Li? He was really stupid. Hearing this, Meng Songtian finally understood. He looked at the broken dragon-slaying blade in his hand, realizing that it was a fake. Meng Songtian, what will you do now? Yi Li said indifferently. Meng Songtian was startled, looking at Yi Li's face with an unprecedented sense of terror. Yi Li, this is only the outskirts of the abandoned city. If you kill me here, you won't be able to leave the abandoned city, Meng Songtian said in horror. Unfortunately, Yi Li had never been afraid of threats. Do you recognize this? Yi Li pointed to his own clothes. Meng Songtian hesitated, not understanding why Yi Li was asking this. Yes. Yi Li nodded. Good. Let me introduce you to something else. With that, Yi Li took the dragon-slaying blade from the system space. This time, the dragon-slaying blade is genuine, Yili said calmly. But before Meng Songtian could even appreciate the blade, Yili unleashed a powerful flame blade technique, and countless fire blades instantly swallowed Meng Songtian. At this moment, the eighth evolved being, the sky-crushing demon hand Meng Songtian, met his end. Ding! Congratulations to the host for slaying Meng Songtian. You have obtained a super treasure chest. Would you like to open it? Yes. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a super treasure map. A brilliant smile appeared on Yili's face as he thought about going on another treasure hunt. Chapter 243. Opportunity for upgrade of all skills. Yili thought that before opening this super treasure map, he needed to clear the zombies in the abandoned city. He turned to look at Ziqiong and found her standing frozen in place like a statue. You can go now, Yili said slowly. Ziqiong, upon hearing this, snapped back to reality. She looked at Yili in astonishment and after a few seconds spoke. Thank you, Senior Demon King, for saving me. 111 leave now. With that, Ziqiong quickly left the abandoned city. The oppressive feeling she experienced by Yili's side was too terrifying. After Ziqiong left, Yili prepared to clear out the zombies in the abandoned city with the Apocalypse Legion. As he moved forward and used the heavenly spirit eyes to scan, he reached the center of the abandoned city and had the Apocalypse Legion attract the zombies. Quack humans? Doesn't seem like it. A harsh voice suddenly entered Yili's ears. Yili followed the sound and saw an extremely ugly dark race member, a fourth-tier evolved being that looked like a duck. What kind of race are you from? And which force in the abandoned city do you belong to? The fourth-tier duck-like dark race member asked Yili. Yili's face remained calm as he shook his head slowly. One don't belong to any force. This answer surprised the fourth-tier duck-like dark race member. So you're an outsider? The duck stared at Yili. That's right. Yili nodded. Quack! The duck chuckled. Since you're an outsider, can one eat you? Yili's face remained as calm as ever. You can. The fourth-tier duck-like dark race member was taken aback. Aren't you afraid? Not at all, Yili said calmly. The duck became somewhat annoyed. In that case, 111 come over and eat you. As he spoke, it flew towards Yili. As the saying goes, you reap what you sow. Yili slowly raised his finger, and golden spiritual light enveloped it. He pointed at the fourth-tier duck-like dark race member, and a terrifying golden spiritual light shot towards him. The duck was greatly shocked, unable to react to the speed of the attack, and was instantly pierced by the golden spiritual light. Yili couldn't understand. He really couldn't understand why there were so many ants who weren't afraid of death. Wasn't life worth living? At this moment, the Apocalypse Legion came, with a horde of zombies following behind. The number of zombies was overwhelming, like a dark cloud pressing down, creating a truly awe-inspiring sight. After giving the order, Yili opened the synthesis grid in his mind and prepared to synthesize these zombies. After a day and night of synthesis in the abandoned city, he finally achieved some results. Ding! Alda upgraded to an 8th-tier zombie. Baiwawa upgraded to an 8th-tier zombie. Hongya upgraded to an 8th-tier zombie. Yutong upgraded to an 8th-tier zombie. Swordsmanship upgraded to an 8th-tier zombie. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining a chance to randomly draw a prize. Would you like to use it? Yes. The virtual pointer spun rapidly within the roulette wheel and stopped a few seconds later. Congratulations to the host for obtaining an opportunity to upgrade all skills by +1. Yili felt lucky and immediately integrated this opportunity to upgrade all skills by +1 into himself and the Apocalypse Legion. Earth-shattering fist, wind, rain, lightning and thunder S-grade. Absolute defense, chill and foot S-grade. Frost chi, snow dance S-grade. Petrification and light energy impact S-grade. Death-dealing triple ghost sword B-grade. Chapter 244. Countless dark race members. Yili originally thought that what Meng Songtian had said was true, and he had believed that the abandoned city harbored some powerful dark race members. Now, it seemed that Meng Songtian was just trying to scare him. After upgrading the members of the Apocalypse Legion all to 8th tier zombies, Yi Li prepared to leave. Demon King Yi Li, after killing so many zombies in the abandoned city, do you think you can just leave? A sudden loud shout reached Yi Li's ears. Yi Li followed the sound and saw countless dark race members appearing on the rooftops surrounding him. Demon King Yi Li, you seem to take our dark race members in the abandoned city as nothing. Originally, we didn't want to confront you, but who would have thought you would kill so many zombies? 10 8th tier dark race members. At this moment, Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion were completely surrounded by these dark race members. Yi Li looked calmly at the speaking dark race member, his face as serene as ever. Step aside or you will all die, Yi Li said slowly. Upon hearing this, the 10 8th tier dark race members burst into laughter, as if they had heard the funniest joke ever. You truly deserve to be Demon King. Your words are unlike those of ordinary people. But do you think you can escape from here? They had 10 8th tier dark race members, as well as countless other dark race members. In their eyes, there was no way Yi Li could escape. Who said one intend to escape? Yi Li said calmly. With these words, the 10 8th tier dark race members were taken aback. They couldn't fathom what else Yi Li could do besides attempting to run away. Could it be, he wanted to fight? Although Yi Li and his Apocalypse Legion were both in the 8th tier, they were up against 10 8th tier dark race members. Demon King Yi Li, one truly admire your arrogance, but you are about to bid farewell to this world. Goodbye Yi Li. As the voice fell, one of the 8th tier dark race members gave the order. In an instant, all the dark race members in the abandoned city rushed towards Yi Li. This time, there were simply too many of them. So numerous that it would be impossible to count even with 10 days and 10 nights. Unfortunately, Yi Li showed no fear. Yi Li took out the dragon-slaying blade from his system space, and a cold aura emanated from the blade. The Apocalypse Legion had already prepared for battle. Flame Blade Technique. Primordial Demon Slash. Yi Li swung the dragon-slaying blade, and countless low-tier dark race members instantly suffered heavy casualties. The Apocalypse Legion also used their respective skills, and the scene became horrifying. Seeing this, the 10 8th tier dark race members rushed forward together. The Apocalypse Legion was facing unprecedented opponents. Whether in the Annan-based city or the Huangjiang-based city, this battle was unlike any they had ever experienced. The Apocalypse Legion was gradually pushed back, and they all sustained severe injuries, on the verge of collapse. Yi Li took out a small tower from his system space. The quaint tower was pitch black and had 7 levels. Yi Li tossed the tower upward, and the heavenly tower instantly enlarged, pressing down forcefully. The heavenly tower was definitely not something the dark race members could resist. The 10 8th tier dark race members were astonished and shouted in horror. Heavenly Tower. Yi Li opened the points mall, and spent 100,000 points to purchase 10 berserk potions. Then he drank all 10 berserk potions at once. Immediately, Yi Li's heart rate reached 1,000 beats per minute, and his entire body turned crimson. Chapter 245. A year of slumber. The 10 8th tier dark race members, with every 2 of them teaming up to fight one. By now, the Apocalypse Legion had all been severely injured and lost their combat capabilities. Yi Li smirked coldly. After drinking 10 berserk potions, he was determined to make these 10 8th tier dark race members understand what true power was. But what happened next was truly shocking. With the tip of his toes, Yi Li leaped into the air, raising the dragon-slaying blade high, and activating the 3rd level of the ancient devil tome. The dragon-slaying blade emitted a chilling light, and demonic aura filled the surroundings. He spoke word by word. Primordial Demon Slash. As he uttered these words, the dragon-slaying blade had already swung down. In an instant, it felt like the world had lost its brilliance. The enhancement from the 10 berserk potions was truly terrifying. The 10 8th tier dark race members widened their eyes, unable to fathom how Yi Li could unleash such a terrifying attack. Swish! 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 In an instant, all 10 8th tier dark race members were killed on the spot. This single strike was Yi Li's full-powered attack. After this strike, Yi Li fell to the ground, completely devoid of strength. He felt his life rapidly slipping away. I didn't die. Yili was taken aback, staring at his palms and realizing that nothing was wrong. Ada, Bai Wawa, Hongye, Yutong, and Swordsman Alchi were all guarding by Yili's side. Brother, it's been a year since you fell asleep. Why are you only waking up now? Yutong pouted and looked at Yili. Yili was shocked. He distinctly remembered taking a short nap. But it had been a whole year? He remembered being besieged by 10 8th-tier Dark Race members, and countless others of their kind alongside the Apocalypse Legion. In the final moments, he consumed 10 bottles of Berserk potions, and unleashed the primordial demon slash. Afterward he passed out. Truly, what felt like a day in the mountains had already been 1,000 years in the secular world. He thought to himself that he had indeed been lucky to survive such a crisis. Now that he was awake, he should leave the abandoned city. However, Yili suddenly remembered that he had a super treasure map. He opened the system space and prepared to activate the super treasure map. Ding! Would you like to activate the super treasure map? Yes. Super treasure map activation in progress. 10%, 30%, 60%, 100%. Coordinates: periphery of the Falling Rock Mountain Range. The periphery of the Falling Rock Mountain Range? Yili had been to the periphery of the Falling Rock Mountain Range before, and there was nothing particularly noteworthy there. Then Yili led the Apocalypse Legion away from the abandoned city. Since the coordinates on the super treasure map were in the Falling Rock Mountain Range, Yili decided to take this opportunity to visit the Flame Organization. After all, Luoyu was his first disciple, and she had even given herself to him. After the Apocalypse Legion reached the 8th tier, their eyes had turned golden, radiating a dazzling light. Along the way, Yili learned quite a bit about the Flame Organization. Currently, the Flame Organization was a super major faction, reigning supreme in the northern part of the Wilderness Northern region, and no one dared to provoke them. However, recently, the Flame Organization had encountered some troubles. While they were dominating the northern area of the Wilderness Northern region, the forces on the east of the Wilderness Northern region had become dissatisfied and engaged in a massive battle with them. The battle had raged for 3 days and 3 nights, only coming to a halt in the past few days. Yili didn't think too much about it, and decided to head toward the Flame Organization with the Apocalypse Legion. Outside the Flame Organization, the Flame Base had been transformed into a magnificent fortress, exuding a sense of grandeur. Chapter 246. Demon King returns. As Yili was about to enter, he was stopped by the genetic warriors guarding the entrance. Halt! Do you know this is the Flame Base? A man stared at Yili. After a year had passed, the Flame Organization had already grown significantly, and it was normal for these gatekeeping genetic warriors not to recognize Yili. Yes. Yili replied calmly. Since you know, do you think you can just enter? Do you really believe that anyone can join the Flame Organization? The man taunted. Yili thought for a moment and then said, Go inside and report that Yili has arrived. What? Yili? All the dozen or so genetic warriors at the gate smiled disdainfully. They hadn't heard of the name Yili before, and they thought he must be quite full of himself. These dozen or so genetic warriors were all first-tier evolved beings, and they were looking at Yili with condescending expressions. Hee, do you know how many genetic warriors want to join Flame? One bet you're here to join Flame too, right? One of them said mockingly. Yili secretly smiled to himself. He couldn't understand why there were so many arrogant ants in this world. Suddenly, a man with nose, lip, and ear piercings, and hair dyed in various colors walked out. He had a bizarre appearance. Guardian Third Ghost. This guy wants to join the Flame Organization, and asked us to report that Yili has arrived, one of the genetic warriors said. All the genetic warriors turned to look at Guardian Third Ghost, eager to see how he would mock Yili. Guardian Third Ghost chuckled, thinking that there were too many stupid people in the Wilderness Northern region. But the name Yili, when he looked at Yili's face, he was stunned, truly stunned. Senior Demon King? Guardian Third Ghost rubbed his eyes. He couldn't believe it was real. Guardian Third Ghost was none other than Old Three from the Western Mountain Ghouls, in the Wilderness Northern Region. Senior Demon King, we all thought you had left the Wilderness Northern Region. We never expected. Before Guardian Third Ghost could finish his sentence, Yili interrupted him. Take me inside to see Luoyu, Yili said calmly. Guardian Third Ghost didn't dare to be negligent, and quickly led Yili inside. The dozen or so genetic warriors were stunned. They looked at each other, and were at a loss as to why Guardian Third Ghost was showing such deference to Yili. Senior Demon King? Right. Is he the Demon King Yili who shook the entire Wilderness Northern Region a year ago? One of the genetic warriors suddenly said. As soon as this was said, the dozen or so genetic warriors instantly froze. As if all the strength had been drained from their bodies, they collapsed to the ground weakly, and their pupils became empty, as if they had lost their souls. They were utterly terrified. Guardian Third Ghost led Yili to the meeting hall, where Luoyu and a group of genetic warriors were in a meeting. Leader, Senior Demon King has returned. As soon as this was said, Luoyu froze as if turned into a statue. She slowly raised her head to look at the young man standing next to Guardian Third Ghost. Senior Demon King? Luoyu felt like everything was a dream. She couldn't believe that Yili would appear before her at this moment. She had thought that Yili had already left the Wilderness Northern Region. All the genetic warriors in the meeting hall were also stunned. Did they even need to say more about the title of Demon King Yili? Chapter 247. The Sky Eagle Organization. Yili's face remained calm, and he paid no attention to the shocked expressions of the others. I heard that another organization is causing trouble for you? Yili looked at Luoyu with a hint of indifference. Luoyu snapped back to reality and quickly replied, Yes, Senior. Although flame dominates north of the Wilderness Northern Region, we don't mean much in the eastern part of the Wilderness Northern Region. We've been in a 3-day battle with the Sky Eagle Organization, and there have been countless casualties. Sky Eagle Organization? The name Sky Eagle Organization was completely unfamiliar to Yili. Senior, the Sky Eagle Organization is one of the 3 major organizations in the eastern part of the Wilderness Northern Region. They possess powerful weapons, and each member wields a specially made laser gun. After hearing Luoyu's explanation, Yili understood. The Sky Eagle Organization was probably similar to a base city, but it was much stronger than the Annan base city and the Huangjiang base city. Senior, the Sky Eagle Organization's intention is to unify the northern part of the Wilderness Northern Region. They have given us 3 days. If we don't agree, they will destroy Flame. Now, all the small and large organizations in the northern part of the Wilderness Northern Region have submitted to the Sky Eagle Organization, except for Flame. Luoyu explained at length, trying to make Yili understand the situation. If Yili hadn't appeared, she wouldn't know what to do. Yili was the reason of Flame's rise. Since they've given us 3 days, I will wait for them here. Yili spoke slowly. Thinking about it, it seemed like another tough battle awaited. In that case, the matter of the super treasure map would have to be put on hold for now. Yili stayed at Flame Base for 3 days. After 3 days, 2 men in suits, accompanied by various major forces on the north of the Wilderness Northern Region, arrived outside Flame Base. There were tens of thousands of people in their group. The Flame Organization had also grown to tens of thousands in size by now. To Yili's surprise, both of these men in suits were 8th-tier evolved beings. He had originally underestimated the Wilderness Northern Region, but now he realized that he had underestimated the world's heroes. In this light, Meng Songtian was merely a dominant figure in the northern part of the Wilderness Northern Region. Luoyu, have you thought it over? A man named Jiang Feng asked as he looked at Luoyu. Jiang Feng was in his 40s, and he was the second leader of the Sky Eagle Organization. The other man, Tian Yi, was also around 40 years old, and was the third leader of the Sky Eagle Organization. Luoyu was currently a 5th-tier evolved being. Although she had reached this level at a young age, she was still worlds apart from Jiang Feng and Tian Yi in terms of strength. You can forget about your dreams. Even if all the forces in the northern part of the Wilderness Northern Region submit to you, Flame will not. Luo Yu said coldly. Jiang Feng and Tian's expressions turned cold upon hearing this. Luo Yu, you're just a minor 5th-tier evolved being. How dare you be so arrogant? Well, give you a taste of your own medicine. Yi Li's return had given Luo Yu confidence, and she looked at Jiang Feng and Tian coldly. Flame will submit to no one. Luo Yu replied coldly. As soon as this was said, Jiang Feng and Tian's faces clouded over. Luo Yu, since you refuse, we'll have to end your life. As soon as Jiang Feng spoke, he prepared to make his move. However, before Jiang Feng could act, a lazy voice suddenly appeared in everyone's ears. You dare to let my disciple die? You're not qualified. Who's speaking? Jiang Feng shouted. Chapter 248. Dare you fight me? The members of the Flame organization parted in the middle, and a handsome young man leisurely walked over. The youth's face was as tranquil as water, as if nothing in the world could disturb him. Jiang Feng and Tian stared at the youth, their expressions immediately becoming serious. I never expected Flame to have an 8th-tier evolved being, Jiang Feng said coldly. His intuition told him that the youth in front of him was very strong, and he sensed a strong aura of danger. Jiang Feng and Tian were both backed by various forces from the north of the wilderness northern region. When they heard Jiang Feng's words, they were all stunned. An 8th-tier evolved being? How could Flame have such an existence? They couldn't understand, they really couldn't. Who are you? Jiang Feng stared at Yi Li. Yi Li. Yi Li spoke slowly. Yi Li. Jiang Feng narrowed his eyes. He had never heard of this name before. Or you can call me Demon King Yi Li. Yi Li continued. What? As soon as these words were spoken, Jiang Feng, Tian and the genetic warriors behind them were all shocked. Demon King Yi Li? A year ago, he was a prominent figure in the wilderness northern region. But Demon King Yi Li hadn't appeared for a year, and it was rumored that he had left the wilderness northern region. How could he suddenly reappear? Demon King Yi Li? A cold light flashed in Jiang Feng's eyes. I know you. I've heard that you're neither human nor dark race member, and you have an Apocalypse Legion. However, your pitiful little force is a joke in the eyes of our Sky Eagle organization. Jiang Feng sneered as he looked at Yi Li. Yi Li's face remained calm as he replied. Perhaps. But if I want to kill you, it will be as easy as slaughtering pigs and dogs. What did you say? Jiang Feng stared at Yi Li, and as the second leader of the Sky Eagle organization, he had never been insulted like this before. Do you want to try? Yi Li looked at Jiang Feng and Tian calmly. Ha ha ha. However, Tian suddenly burst into laughter. Tian's body was as strong as an ox, and even though he was wearing clothes, it couldn't hide his steel-like physique. Yi Li, it seems you really don't know what you're about to face. You can never imagine the strength of the Sky Eagle organization. Tian stared at Yi Li. Hee, I don't need to imagine. Yi Li's face remained serene. Upon hearing this, Tian became furious and pointed at Yi Li's head with his finger. Yi Li, do you dare to fight me? I have a unique set of martial arts. And even though we're both 8th-tier evolved beings, there's no way you can defeat me. Tian looked at Yi Li with pride, firmly believing that Yi Li wouldn't dare to accept his challenge. The members of the Flame organization and the genetic warriors from the northern part of the wilderness northern region dared not take a breath. In their eyes, the conversation among Yi Li and Jiang Feng and Tian, it was like a battle of gods. Do you even deserve to fight me? Yi Li slowly shook his head. Tian felt insulted by Yi Li's response. He had never experienced such humiliation before. Yi Li, it seems you don't dare, yet you call yourself the Demon King Yi Li. It's truly laughable. Tian said firmly. Yi Li, however, smiled faintly. How about this? I'll let a member of my Apocalypse Legion fight you. If you win, Flame will submit to the Sky Eagle organization. If you lose, you'll have to leave. Deal. Tian immediately agreed without even thinking, as he had absolute confidence in himself. Chapter 249. By Wawa vs. Tian. Members of the Flame organization and various major forces from the wilderness northern region widened their eyes upon hearing this. The third leader of the Sky Eagle organization, Tian-Yi, was about to battle a member of the Apocalypse Legion. This was a once-in-lifetime spectacle. Yi, am ready. Let your Apocalypse Legion member come out, Tian-Yi said. Staring at Yi, Yi smiled faintly and released Bai Wawa from the system space. Tian-Yi was skilled in martial arts, while Bai Wawa had an absolute defense. Both sides were evenly matched, and it was like a showdown between two equals. Yi had absolute confidence in Bai Wawa, especially since Bai Wawa's absolute defense had reached the S grade. Ancient Chinese martial arts included skills like Golden Bell Shield, Iron Cloth Shirt, and the 13 Guardian technique. Bai Wawa had a wide and stout physique, and if you put him on a scale, he would weigh close to 200 pounds or so. Tian-Yi stared into Bai Wawa's golden eyes and sneered. 8th tier zombie, truly terrifying. The members of the Flame Organization and the genetic warriors from the Wilderness Northern region held their breath, afraid to say a word. They stared fixedly at the scene, fearing that they might miss the show. Yi, let's begin. Tian-Yi shouted at Yi. Tian-Yi was extremely confident in his martial arts skills. Even though Bai Wawa was an 8th tier zombie, he didn't believe that Bai Wawa stood a chance against him. Do one need to teach you how to do it? Yi asked Bai Wawa. No need, master, Bai Wawa nodded. Then Bai Wawa took a big step forward. Their eyes locked onto each other, and it seemed that a great battle was about to begin. Silence, a deadly silence. Suddenly, Tian-Yi's fist shook, and a strong wind began to howl. Tian-Yi had seemingly pushed his strength to the limit. He charged forward at an incredible speed. In an instant, Tian-Yi arrived in front of Bai Wawa, and he threw a powerful punch at him. This punch didn't contain any spiritual energy, but it had a shocking and overwhelming force. Bai Wawa, however, stood still as if he hadn't seen the punch coming at all. Boom! Tian-Yi's punch, which seemingly carried the force of 10,000 pounds, struck Bai Wawa's body squarely. Everyone watched in silence, waiting to see who would win. It's over. A happy smile appeared on Tian-Yi's lips. He had thought that this 8th tier zombie had some ability, but it seemed that he was wrong. This 8th tier zombie didn't even know how to dodge. After this punch, it was likely that the zombie would lose its fighting ability. Unfortunately, Tian-Yi would rather believe that he would only live for one more second than believe that his punch had caused no harm to the zombie. However, Bai Wawa grinned as if the punch that struck him with the force of 10,000 pounds was nothing more than a tickle. What? Tian-Yi was shocked beyond belief. How could he have expected that the 8th tier zombie would still be able to smile after his punch, as if it had caused no harm at all? The next moment, Bai Wawa raised his fist in turn and struck Tian-Yi's body fiercely. Tian-Yi gritted his teeth and showed no intention of dodging. Bai Wawa's punch landed squarely on Tian-Yi's body. To Yi-Li's surprise, Tian-Yi didn't even take a step back. Yi-Li smiled faintly, thinking that Tian-Yi was stronger than he thought. Chapter 250, Take One More Step, Die. Members of the Flame Organization and genetic warriors from the north of the Wilderness Northern region were all stunned. They thought that this was already the most shocking moment, but what awaited them was even more astonishing. Bai Wawa and Tian-Yi engaged in a fierce battle, exchanging blows with each punch displaying incredible power. Bai Wawa's absolute defense was now at the S grade, making his defense astonishing. Tian-Yi and Bai Wawa didn't know how many rounds they fought, but the audience's eyes were now wider than they had ever been in their entire lives. Their mouths were agape, wide enough to hold a large bowl. Luo Yu was in shock, wondering if this was what battles between strong individuals looked like. It was absolutely terrifying. Yi, however, remained calm with a face as serene as water. He believed that Bai Wawa would win, because Bai Wawa hadn't even used his trump card yet. Bai Wawa and Tian-Yi continued to exchange countless blows, and Tian-Yi began to feel the strain on his stamina. He looked at Bai Wawa coldly, then suddenly raised his fist and shouted, "Vajra Overlord Fist!" As he spoke, Tian-Yi unleashed a punch with a burst of Vajra Phantom. Bai Wawa raised his tiptoe and leaped several meters into the air. His right foot had transformed into the Qilin foot. Bai Wawa's current title was Iron-Footed Zombie, and his Qilin foot struck directly at Tian-Yi. The collision between the Vajra Overlord Fist and the Qilin foot created a deafening explosion. Boom! A thunderous roar rang out, and members of the Flame Organization and genetic warriors from the Wilderness Northern region fell to the ground. Their faces were filled with terror. Such a battle was beyond anything they had ever witnessed. Splurt! Tiani suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying backward. Third brother! Jiang Feng shouted loudly and took a swift step to reach Tiani's side. Fortunately, Tiani still had a breath left. At this moment, the faces of everyone were filled with absolute shock, because this battle was truly unprecedented. However, Yi Li's face remained as calm as ever, as if nothing had happened. He looked at Jiang Feng and said, "Go back. In my eyes, you're just like ants." Upon hearing this, Jiang Feng was furious. As the second in command of the Sky Eagle organization, he had never been so humiliated. "Yi Li, don't think that winning against Old Third makes you invincible. Now I'll show you what true strength is," Jiang Feng declared angrily. With that, he launched a fierce attack against Yi Li. Now, he held a deep grudge against Yi Li, and he was determined to seek revenge. Yi Li was a bit helpless. The one who had injured Tian, Yi was by Wawa, not him. He slowly raised his finger, and a golden spiritual light wrapped around it. Swish! A wind-breaking sound was heard, and the ground beneath Jiang Feng's feet was instantly torn open by the golden spiritual light, creating a large pit. Jiang Feng was so frightened that a chill ran down his spine. His previous anger had completely disappeared. SSS-level genetic warrior? Jiang Feng looked at Yi Li in utter shock. As an S-level genetic warrior, he knew that he couldn't defeat another SSS-level genetic warrior. "Take one more step, and you'll die," Yi Li calmly warned Jiang Feng. Yi Li didn't want to kill Tian Yi and Jiang Feng at the moment. After all, he was about to head to the eastern part of the Wilderness Northern region. He would deal with them later. Startled, Jiang Feng didn't dare to take another step forward. After a few moments of contemplation, Jiang Feng picked up Tian Yi and swiftly departed from the area, and the whole process seemed to flow seamlessly. Chapter 251. No more business here at this moment. The genetic warriors from the north of the Wilderness Northern region were all in shock. They were the forces north of the Wilderness Northern region, with the Flame Organization as their leader, yet they had surrendered to the Sky Eagle Organization. Now that the second and third leaders of the Sky Eagle Organization had already retreated, what about them? They didn't dare to think any further. They really didn't dare to continue thinking. "Leader Luoyu, we were wrong," one of the organization leaders said, looking at Luoyu in fear. As soon as these words were spoken, the leaders of the various organizations quickly echoed in agreement. Luoyu looked at these organization leaders. Although she was angry, the main reason these organization leaders had become turncoats was that Flame couldn't protect them. Surviving in the wilderness zone was already not easy, and how they survived didn't matter as long as they stayed alive. "Join Flame now," Yi Li said, looking at the organization leaders. Seeing that it was Yi Li speaking, the organization leaders dared not refuse. "Yes, Senior Demon King." Luoyu looked at Yi Li gratefully. Although she had given herself to Yi Li, she did not expect Yi Li to stay with her. She knew that someone like Yi Li would never stoop to stay in a place like this. Yi Li didn't stay in Flame for long. He headed to the eastern part of the Wilderness Northern region. The east side of the Wilderness Northern region was much stronger than the north, and the Falling Rock Mountain Range was located in the east of the Wilderness Northern region. The coordinates of the Super Treasure map were also in the Falling Rock Mountain Range, but before searching for the treasure, Yi Li had to deal with some matters first. After all, the overall strength of the Sky Eagle organization was much stronger than that of Flame. If this issue wasn't resolved, Flame would not last long. Yi Li arrived at a dilapidated small town that had long been abandoned. He walked slowly and noticed that not far ahead, there was still a noodle shop with smoke rising from its chimney. Yi Li was surprised to see that there were still people doing business here. Were there customers? He found it interesting, and since he was a bit hungry, he walked into the noodle shop. A thick layer of dust had settled on the few tables in the noodle shop, but there was a man with sharp features and a skinny face eating noodles with relish. "Boss," Yili called out. But there was no response. Yili thought that maybe the owner was not there. "Boss," he called out again. Still there was no response. Yili looked at the man eating noodles in front of him. The man appeared to be in his 30s and was a third-tier evolved being. "Friend, where's the owner of this noodle shop?" Yili asked slowly. The man finished his last bite of noodles, then raised his head slightly to look at Yili. In that instant he was shocked to his core. He couldn't believe there could be such a good-looking person in the world. Compared to him it was like heaven and earth. Feeling disgruntled, the man looked at Yili with disdain. "I am the owner here. What do you want?" Yili smiled and spoke slowly. "Aside from eating noodles, is there anything else to do here? We don't do business here anymore. You should leave," the man said coldly. "I see you're enjoying those noodles. Would you mind cooking me a bowl? Money is not an issue," Yili said casually. When Yili left Flame, he had brought a considerable amount of post-apocalyptic coins with him. Not to mention eating a bowl of noodles, he could eat noodles for a lifetime and still not run out of money. "I said we don't do business here anymore. Can't you hear?" The man looked extremely impatient as he spoke to Yili. Chapter 252. Eat up all the dust on the table. Yili smiled. Considering the man before him was just a lowly second-tier evolved being, it was audacious of him to speak to him in such a manner. "It's a pity that one must insist you cook me a bowl of noodles right now," Yili said calmly, looking at the man. Since he had crossed over into this parallel world, he hadn't eaten noodles. And since they were available here, he thought it might be good to savor the taste of home. The sharp-featured man was momentarily stunned. He hadn't expected Yili to make such a request. "Kid, this is my territory. What if I refuse to cook?" The man stared at Yili box novel. "Calm, in that case, 111 have you eat all the dust on the table," Yili replied calmly. The man was taken aback, sizing up Yili. He had seen arrogant people before, but this level of arrogance was a first. This place wasn't just a noodle shop. The man wondered if this person had found out something. With this thought in mind, the man's pupils rapidly contracted. "Brat, do you know something?" The man stared intently at Yili. Yili smiled inwardly. He had initially thought this place was just an ordinary noodle shop, but it seemed there was a hidden secret. "I don't know anything. I just want a bowl of noodles," Yili said leisurely. The man banged on the table in anger, pointing his finger at Yili's head, and said coldly, "Get out of here. Leave now, or don't blame me for being impolite." Yili looked at the man's finger, which was pointing at his head. A slight smile played on his lips as he made a small gesture. "Are you worthy of pointing your finger at my head?" As the words left his mouth, a golden light shot out from Yili's pupils. The man was only a second-tier evolved being, and he didn't even have time to react. "Ollie!" A piercing scream, like that of a slaughtered pig, echoed through the air. The man's finger had been severed. Yili had once sworn that he would never let anyone point their finger at his head. When he was a child, he had a meal with his mother, but because he said something wrong and offended her, she pointed 2 fingers at his head, forcing him to finish an entire pot of rice. Fortunately, his father had eaten it on his behalf. Little did he know it was not over yet. His mother even called his grandmother to join in, using 4 fingers to point at his head, forcing him to finish the previous day's pot of rice. From that moment on, he had vowed never to let anyone point their finger at his head again. Since transmigrating into this parallel world, no one had dared to point their finger at his head. This sharp-featured man had brought this misfortune upon himself. The man let out one horrifying scream after another, making one's scalp tingle. Yili remained calm and composed, as if he couldn't hear the man's screams at all. "Eat all the dust on this table, or you'll die right away," Yili said calmly. Hearing this, the man felt as though he had fallen into an ice cave. He had already forgotten about the pain, and he stared at Yili with a soul-shaking look of horror. He never expected Yili to be so terrifying. If he could do it all over again, he would never have acted this way. Do you know where this place is?" Yili shook his head slightly. "One don't really care about where this place is. I just want you to eat up all the dust on this table. Don't make me say it a third time." The man, despite the excruciating pain, dared not scream. He knew that Yili was not making an empty threat. If he didn't eat all the dust on this table, he would disappear from this world forever. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.